Hey, afternoon, guys. Welcome to my spot this evening. Graham, Techno Wizard, coming to you live, as always, from Glenwood, Durban, South Africa. A big warm welcome to all my listeners out there today, to our friends overseas, our compatriots, as well as my friends up in Johannesburg, Cape Town, and scattered across Natal. Well, dudes, I guess it's back to work for most of us. Started work on Monday. I think a lot more people will be going back this coming Monday. But not faced with the great prospect of not having electricity. And some disturbing news I picked up on the radio about half hour ago before I came on air tonight was there was somebody talking about that we're guaranteed to have load shedding for the next 9 months. Now, that is guaranteed. It's not hearsay. It's guaranteed. Energy analyst Ted Blum had this to say.
A number of energy experts like yourself have repeatedly said that, look, load shedding is with us for at least another 5 years, anticipating, in fact, that this is at least a problem that we'll have for 5 years. Could you kindly elaborate for us? Because there does seem to be some kind of denials from Eskom, or perhaps people that are simply in denial.
Yeah, I think part of the problem at Eskom is that a lot of the people that are currently in leadership and spokesperson positions, unfortunately, don't have the legacy of Eskom at heart. They're new in the positions, or they aren't qualified to make the comments that they do, and the undertakings that they do. I'm on record as saying only a fool would try and forecast what the level of load shedding would be, or would give the guarantee that there'd be no load shedding going forward, because load shedding is determined by the status of the system, not by any promises or pledges by the president or the minister or the CEO of Eskom. And so anybody who makes those predictions or undertakings is actually living in a fool's paradise.
So you're not surprised really to see us where we are right now?
Absolutely not, because you've got to look at the underlying reasons. The underlying reason why Eskom is in this dire straits is because firstly, they're fueling the power station with incorrect fuel. It will take them at least 5 years to sort out the fueling problem, because they have to open up new coal mines, as I had recommended to them in 2007. They undertook to open up 40 new mines. I suggested they needed 20. To date, they haven't opened up one single new mine. So they're running out of fuel, and they're feeding substandard fuel to the boilers. That leads to excessive boiler breakdown and wear and tear. Then they haven't done maintenance properly since 2010, because they thought they're going to be saved by the new power stations, which are themselves now also defective and 10 times more than the world average in terms of cost. So you've really got a calamitous situation in that they deliberately ran the old stations into the ground. Now suddenly they want to rely on those old stations, but those old stations need full refurbishment.
Why would they deliberately do so?
They thought they were going to be saved by the new power stations. It's like if you're going to sell your car in the next year or two, you will start skimping on the maintenance of the car, maybe not upgrade the tires and stuff. That's what they've done. But they've had to run them much harder, because Medupi and Kusile are years late, and Ngula were years late, and are defective themselves. They're not delivering on the promise when they were on the drawing boards. Kusile is delivering at 20% of promise. Medupi is delivering on good days at 60% of promise. So there's a massive shortfall. Now they're running back to the old stations to make up for the shortfall. But the old stations are in a derelict situation. Half of them they've been taken offline, they haven't got parts to fix the things up, and they haven't serviced them, and they haven't refurbished them. And the normal power station maintenance would require that you do a mid-life refurbishment. In other words, you take out all the wear and tear parts and put them in new ones, and then you've got virtually a new power station good for another 25 to 30 years. Eskom hasn't done it. Now it's got the quandary, it's got spending money on the new stations to try and fix them up. It's having to spend exorbitant amounts of money on coal, which it hasn't got. Thirdly, it's spending exorbitant amounts on breakdowns, which it hasn't planned for. And fourthly, it hasn't got the money.
I want to talk about what I'm going to call the misinformation to the public. I'm shying away from using the word lie. 1 minute we're told that there's no more load shedding, as we've mentioned. Then without warning, we're brought back into that situation. Is the public really being given a sort of a full picture or full information as to what the problems at Eskom actually are? I mean, 1 minute, you'll remember, we were told that there was some kind of sabotage. The next minute we were told there was wet coal. Then there were problems problems at Medupi with the conveyor belt failure. I mean, it's one story to the next. Is the public really being sort of brought into the confidence of the people that are in charge at Eskom, or is it, we'll pick one story today? I mean, it's not as if we can argue because we aren't the experts on this.
Okay, so I think Eskom will be the first, and I think the minister has made that admission, that there's been a dire shortfall in Eskom's quality and level of communication. That's the first thing. The second thing is they've done nothing to fix it up.
Yeah.
It's still continuing to this day by having these false undertakings to the public. They seem to think that they can fool the public. At the end of the day, the public isn't fooled by a dark reality that they face. I mean, we're about to start our new year working week tomorrow. And in a week's time, most of the people will be back at work. I am on record. In December, I said that we would have load shedding in December. Why? Because they're running the system too hard. It's reckless the way that the system was being run.
Yeah.
And with the first trip, we had a fallover of the grid. Again, I'm on record as saying, as from the 13th of January, I'm expecting massive load shedding. Why? Because they haven't managed to fix up everything that they were supposed to fix up. And secondly, they're still running the system far too hard for what it was designed. And that is just, as far as I can see, it's just a reckless way of doing things. And South African public deserves far better. We need to be able to plan. If you're opening up your doors tomorrow and you're going to start your smelter, you need to know that you're going to have power 24/7. If that smelter breaks down, it's a 6-month disaster to fix it up again. If you're baking bread and you're halfway through the baking process and the power goes off, that whole batch is wasted. And so we can carry on from industry to industry to industry. Our economy has been built on secure, cheap power supply. Today, Eskom cannot promise any cheap, reliable power supply. That's the situation.
I want to talk solutions then, Mr. Blom. You've been on record saying that, open the grid before, Eskom finally does actually collapse. I see a number of people who can afford to are, installing solar panels and inverters. Some people saying that, they've had to sort of stop relying on Eskom. Is that the future? What is actually the sustainable solution from where you sit?
Okay, so I think that's a different answer for different category people.
Yeah.
If you're a household and you're a small user, I would suggest you start thinking about getting off the grid. Mm-hmm. Nobody must panic, because if you're going into panic mode, you'll start making foolish purchases decisions.
Yeah.
So you need to start just aligning your mind and saying, well, this is what I think I plan to do, and start investigating the alternatives, because there are unfortunately a lot of fly-by-nights. I mean, I've been told that there's people in Pretoria trading under my name. Can you believe it? And ripping people off. So people need to be very cautious about that. Do your homework.
Yeah.
Don't panic. And there's new technology around the corner. I hope to be in this position within 6 months to announce new DIY home technology that will make life a lot easier for most homeowners.
Yeah, energy analyst Ted Blom saying it as it is. Guys, I've been warning you about this for a long, long time as well. There's a lot of people, when we were led into the announcement of stage 6 load shedding, people panicked. They rushed off to the local Chinese stores and grabbed anything they could pertaining to sustainable energy. Solar panels, batteries, inverters, not knowing full well what they were letting themselves in for. And secondly, guys, admit it to yourselves. If you are not in the know, you are going to slip up and make a lot of costly mistakes. Now, this is why I am here, to help you guys. I'm not looking for money and handouts from people. I'm okay. I'm off the grid completely, have been for 12 years. And the advice that I'm going to give you guys is advice that I can guarantee works. I've been there, done that, and got the T-shirt. I'm an electronics technician. I've been that person for the last 45 years. Guys, you can get hold of me on Facebook, and I know I've got a couple of Facebook profiles out there. You guys are going to have to kind of send me a request, and then I will accept, and then you can get on and watch my blog in the evenings. It will help you. There's a lot of new technology being developed especially overseas and locally as well, steering away from the conventional technology, which is wind generation, solar panels, and geothermal technology, which we don't have too much of in this country. My advice to you guys is that you research firstly before you rush into any kind of project and go out and buy stuff. Is do your homework. Figure out what you need to run predominantly in your home. Let's not talk about rubbish stuff now like Xboxes and entertainment centers and stuff. You can go that way. It's going to cost you because obviously the more power that you draw from your inverter, the more power you must have in reserve, which is in your batteries, and also the amount of power that you put into the batteries via your solar panels through a solar regulator. There's a lot of solar regulators out there now which have built-in solar chargers. Some good, some not so good. The MPPT regulator is the way to go. That regulator uses every ounce of energy that the sun puts out and generates power for your batteries. There's a lot of nasty regulators out there which basically dump all the excess energy which goes to waste. Secondly, and most importantly, is your batteries. Now, you get batteries and you get batteries. Glass mat AGM batteries are the way to go. You can basically run them down to almost dead and then recharge them again. Then you get the conventional batteries that if you do that, you're going to end up destroying your battery. So do a certain amount of research on the kind of battery that is needed for solar generation or solar storage of electricity. And then comes your inverter. You get two kinds of inverters. You get the pure sine wave inverter, which generates a 50 hertz sine wave, which is what we have in this country. Overseas is 60 hertz. And then you get the modified sine wave inverter, which is a chopped, not a pure sine wave, which can ultimately destroy certain amounts of equipment in your home, i.e. Fridge compressors don't like to be run on a modified sine wave inverter. There's some LED lighting that use ballasts and electronics to drive them, which are not happy with modified sine wave inverters. Now, I guarantee that most of you guys out there listening to me tonight have absolutely no idea between a pure sine wave and a modified sine wave inverter. And this is why I said I'm here. I'm important to you right now. As I said when I started the show tonight, we're guaranteed 9 months of load shedding. And then as our energy analyst said, Ted Blum, at least 5 years. And that pertains to not having opened coaling stations to mine coal and trying to hang on to the old power stations. The two new power stations now up and running are Kisinga and Medupi power stations, only running at under 50% of power. And it's almost halfway through January. And things are going to get worse, guys. We're at stage 2 load shedding right now. I think it was from 12 till 2 o'clock today here in Durban. In my area, we had load shedding. And, if you kind of figure that if you run an industry from home, if you're relying on PCs and computers and stuff, and your power goes down, you're sitting with your finger up your butt because there's nothing you can do. I do have a suggestion for this, another way around it. Obviously, with inverters and stuff like that, you need a fair amount of backup power, battery power, to run inverters, because what you're doing is you're stepping up a small voltage, 12, 24, 48, 96 volts, up to a higher voltage. You have losses, which basically pertains to loss of energy through heat. Now, there's a couple of ways. If you bear in mind that a lot of your equipment around the home pertaining to your PC, if you have a laptop computer, it plugs into 220 volts via an adapter. But there are ways of just using a standard 12-volt battery, stepping that voltage up to 19 volts or to 22 volts that a lot of the laptops run on without having to use an inverter. Your modem, for instance, your cordless phone, which runs on 12 volts. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of office equipment. I'm not talking about printers and stuff like that for But small office equipment, stuff that you rely on, your cell phone, to charge your cell phone. You don't need to produce 220 volts to produce 5 volts to charge your phone. You can basically step up your or step down your 12 volt DC, your battery, by using a little box which I can knock up, which will either step up to 12 volts to 19 or 22 volts, which runs your PC. You can also have LED lighting, which will run on 12 volts quite happily. So you've now got your PC running, you've got your lights on, your modem runs on 12 volts via an adapter, so you can now run that direct off the battery, 12 volts. You can charge your phone, as I said. There are numerous little devices which you rely heavily on, that when the power goes down, you're in a fix. So, yeah. Guys, look out for my Facebook page. Just go on to Graham Robjant and look for the oak who's wearing the pirate hat and the beard. Send me a friend's request and I will accept, and then you can watch my shows every evening. Guys, I'm not going to drag it out too much this evening. Weather's cooled down nicely here in Durban, as you can see behind me. Still light here. It's the 5,000 litre Jojo at the back there for harvesting water, and then to my right, or to your left, I think, is the pool which houses the tilapia fish, and that's going to be basically aquaponics, which the grow beds will be on top of that, and pumped water from the fish tank or the pond will be sent up to the plants. They will absorb the nitrates and nitrates or nitrites from the pool, from the fish, from their excrement, benefit the plants. The plants will then put their nutrients back into the pool, and you have a cycle of friendliness between fish and plant. Guys, new energy out there. Take a listen to this, and I think this is where it's going to come from eventually. It's a little bit way expensive at the moment in this country, but they are researching it overseas. It's fuel cells, turning natural gas into hydrogen via a chemical reaction, producing electricity and heat for cooking and for heating. And here's how it works.
New technology is being put into use in San Diego that could someday be the new answer to bring you a lower power bill. New tonight, 10 News reporter Bob Lawrence on how fuel cell power works and where it's already being put into good use.
It doesn't look like much on the outside, but inside is a fuel cell, strong enough to power your home or business.
Essentially, it's power and heat in our case, because what these units do is a combined heat and power unit.
Oregon-based Clear Edge Power is here to generate interest in its fuel cell product at a forum hosted by the Center for Sustainable Energy. Simply put, hooked up to a natural gas line, the device chemically turns the gas into hydrogen, which then in the cell generates power for the home as well as heat for hot water or the pool. On a larger scale, that's exactly what this fuel cell system is doing for the Sheraton Harbor Island. Installed 5 years ago, the system currently provides 70% of the power needed to run the hotel, and the heat that's generated as a byproduct.
We heat up our hot water, our domestic hot water, to the guest rooms and also our pool at the other tower.
The emissions, by the way, are next to zero. ClearEdge says its fuel cell is more reliable than, say, wind or solar, since it doesn't depend on the elements. But at $50,000, cost may be a factor.
As the volume picks up and we find more creative ways to design it for low cost, it will get spread out into the more mass market residential and other commercial type applications.
Well, there we go, guys. New technology. And, bearing in mind now, they're talking about turning natural gas into electricity and to heat. My project this year is bioenergy, which is basically producing natural gas from waste products. So if you think about it, guys, you would normally, in doing something like this, have to have a gas line. But if you're producing bioenergy from waste products, guys, you've got it made. From me, Graham Techno Wizard here in Durban, coming to you live this evening on a rather wet evening now, and we're really, really enjoying the cool weather here. I bid you a good night. Thanks very much for listening. Take care, and all being well, we'll catch you tomorrow.